and welcome to the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you through the world of online communications in a show which was the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. And as usual, we have a chat about the weather at the beginning. So, Sweyn, how is the weather where you are?
Weather here in Orkney is wonderful, actually, today. It's cool, lovely, breezy, bright day. It's been great.
And here in the west of Ireland, it's also bright. I've been out for a walk already this morning, surprised myself at half eight. But the sky is, you can see the sun trying to break through, and it's dry, so that's always a blessing. And so today, unusually for us now, we do not have a guest. So just for myself and Sweyn chatting about the various things that we've picked up along the way in the last week or so. And the first thing, as usual, we talk about is what's been happening and what we're celebrating around this time of year. And of course, Sunday, 28th of March, was the change to so-called British summertime. First established by the Summertime Act 1916. So I believe from Wikipedia, after a campaign by builder William Willett, and his original proposal was to move the clocks forward by 80 minutes in 20-minute weekly steps on Sundays in April, and by the reverse procedure in September.
I think that's a far better system. We wouldn't get confused at all with that one.
In 1916, BST began on 21st of May and ended on the 1st of October. So, yeah, I mean, I think it has various incarnations and stuff, and people talk about it a lot. But a YouGov poll taken in March 2015 suggested 40% of the people surveyed would prefer an end to the practice of changing the clocks, while only 33% wanted to keep it, and the rest were indifferent or not sure. And then a recent YouGov survey showed 44% would prefer to keep changing the clocks as now, and only 39% backed having constant summertime. 56% were against stopping changing the clocks in Scotland. But sunrise would be as late as 10 a.m. in the winter in northern parts, and it's feared that colder, icy roads combined with people still half asleep in the dark is bad for health and safety. So is it different in Scotland, Sweyn?
Well, it's not different. We have this we have the same time in Scotland as in England and Wales and Northern Ireland, and also in Ireland as a whole. But I think actually Orkney and Shetland are so far north, and we have such short days in the winter that it really doesn't matter to us too much. But I think in many areas of Scotland, the feeling is that if we were to go to permanent summertime, then in the wintertime, the mornings would be very dark, and there's concern about increased accidents for people, particularly for young people going backwards and forwards to school and college. And I think that's just an argument that has rumbled on forever and ever. Time zones are one of my favourite subjects, actually, I must admit. And you reminded me before we came on air about how in the olden days, pre-railways, each town might have its own time set by this, just approximately 11 o'clock, maybe 15, 20 minutes either way, which of course doesn't work when you're trying to run a train service between towns, because you need to know what the actual time is. And it struck me that time zones have become much more important to us in the internet age. I mean, there's always been a few people who need to know that the markets are open in Hong Kong or America or somewhere, but for every sort of easy interaction internationally now, it's only in the last 10 or so years that I think the majority of people have direct access to people who are, no hassle, no cost, free access to people who are actually at a different time of day as to what you are yourself. And it seems it's the whole time zone thing. When you first start to interact with the whole internet, it takes quite a bit of getting used to, but then eventually you get almost a second nature that, oh yes, Americans, they'll be up a lot later than us. Indians, the cricket starts 6.5 hours different ahead of what we might expect, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think time and how we decide what time it is has moved. How individuals interact with that has moved on quite a lot over the last 100 years, and quite a lot more over the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, and as you say, during the pandemic, it's become even more kind of talked about, I suppose, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who has been signing up for and going to events online in other countries, other continents where the start time might be like 5 p.m. EST or PM PST, whatever they call it in America, in some of the American areas. And
My favorite is Mountain Time.
yes, yes, that's fabulous. I think Beth Cantor uses that one. Um, but yeah, so I know that we're both helping to organise Open Data Cafe on the 10th of April, and I think that the start time of 12 o'clock has gone down very well in Finland with
Of course it
ESCO.
will, yes. Yes.
And we do have people who've signed up from other countries and even and other continents other than Europe actually as well. So it'll be great to see if they join us. But obviously, 12 o'clock has had some appeal to people.
I've been involved. I've got a sort of body of friends that I've really only met online, and we do various fun things like listen to music and chat and all the rest of it. And some people are on the west coast of America, some people are on the east coast of America, some people are in New Zealand, some people are, in
Mm,
Asia. And the only confusing time of year really is March, where America and some other parts of the world move their clocks forward very early in March, so that there's a month where nobody really knows what time it is anywhere else in the world until Europe catches up and moves
mm,
the clocks on usually the last Sunday morning of
mm,
March.
mm.
And the other thing to watch for, of course, is that if a country in the southern hemisphere does daylight saving time, they're going in the opposite direction. So New Zealand are 10 hours ahead of us in the winter or the summer. Don't ask me to say which. Then, no, sorry, 11 hours. 11 hours it is. Then for March, they go to 12 hours. And then in the summer, they're 13 hours ahead.
God.
so yeah, and even 10 years ago, I don't think hardly anybody would really appreciate that this was a thing.
Mm,
But ever since, really since the time of FaceTime and what's the next, Skype? How
mm,
can I forget Skype? It's one of those days. I think that's really when it would have started for
mm.
a lot of people to have
Yeah.
to think about what time of the day it is
Mm,
all around the world. Anyway, we've
yeah.
managed to spend a long time on time.
Well, I think it's worth it. I was going to say I've got a friend in Chile whose time is changing by an hour over the current few weeks. So I'm talking to her on Saturdays, and it's a different time every Saturday for the current time. So it's
Wow, so they
up
do
and
that
fusing. So I
in
just need
Chile.
to make a note that it's her, whatever her time is. So I'm not ringing her in the middle of the night, basically. Anyway, yes, as you say, we've talked a bit about that. So the other thing that is around this time of year is Holi, which is a popular ancient Hindu festival, also known as the Festival of Love, the Festival of Colors, and the Festival of Spring. And it celebrates the arrival of spring, the end of winter, the blossoming of love, and for many, it is a festive day to meet others, play and laugh, forgive and forget, and repair broken relationships. So
That's good.
that's a nice one to be celebrating as well. And we thank to Wikipedia again for information about that one. Yeah, it's nice. Some nice pictures there on screen. Lord Krishna playing Holi with goddess Radha and other gopis. So celebration. Anybody who's celebrating that, hope you're having a good time with that.
Yes.
And then an event which I noticed is happening today. Well, if today is the 29th of March, on Hope Radio, it would have been yesterday, but this is an event about tackling the digital divide by BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, which I spotted at the weekend. And they are talking about, obviously living through the pandemic would have looked and felt very different without access to digital technologies, and the progress many of us made to move our lives online was not universal. So they're going to talk about how COVID-19 exacerbated the inequalities that already exist in society between those who can access and reap the benefits of digital technology and those who can't or feel they don't need to. And the UK's digital divide has fast become one of the most important measures of modern inequality. So this event is an opportunity to hear from the BCS and IET presidents, explore the role of professional bodies and how individual members can make a positive impact to close the digital divide. So on screen now, Sweyn has the agenda, where it's going to be scene setting, then introductions by speakers, Q&A and discussion and summary. So I think that'd be an interesting. I found BCS events quite accessible. And I think they make an effort to, give people a chance to ask questions and feedback. And it's good to see professionals in that body talking about the digital divide. Is it a body you're familiar with, Swain?
I am familiar with it. I'm not a member, but
Mm,
yes, it does a lot of good work in all sorts of areas. Actually, a lot of them you might not even expect. Kind of
hmm
like this one, you wouldn't necessarily
mm.
think, but it's good. I might even attend that one if its registration is still open. It's three
Yeah,
o'clock
it
this
looks
afternoon,
like it is. Yeah, yeah,
so that's going to be an interesting one.
yeah. Okay, so as we said, we have no guests this week, so we get to talk about all the stories that we've been picking up, and some of them we've picked up a while ago. So it'll be good to catch up on those and see what's going on. So the first one is from the Restart Project, which is the project that's been part of bringing together. They did a list of all the donation programs that are running right now in the UK, and they did this story about how the gap in digital literacy widens when children are not able to explore the digital world on their own. And they say as schools start to open again across the country, they revisit the incredible work the repairers are doing to get laptops into the hands of students. And two organisations that have been supporting the laptop reuse effort are Merit in London and Hackney Fixers, also in London. And in this story, they talked to Mercedes Ollie and James Diamond from both of these groups to find out how it's going and what they can do to help. So I thought that was a good one
That's a good one.
to remind, yeah, that the kind of these projects are ongoing. I think some of these, if you see, look at the top of the screen where Swain has it open now, it's the tab with UK laptop donation lists all the projects up and down the country, and there's more joining all the time, where you can donate your computer to local people. A list of community reuse projects in the
Oh yes, a
UK.
long list here.
Yeah.
Lots in
So
England,
yeah,
lots in London, which
yeah,
it's regional in
Northwest.
England, and
Yeah,
we'll get to Scotland and other places. I'm sure Scotland and
yes, Scotland and
Wales.
Wales
Way
at the bottom. Yeah, joined
Edinburgh,
together.
Glasgow, Highlands, uh, everywhere. National, Cardiff,
Yeah,
North Wales. Yeah,
yeah.
great.
So it's good to see that happening. And they a Digital Access Network is still meeting and encouraging people to kind of get together. And there's a Slack group as well, as you would imagine, for groups like this. Not terribly keen on Slack, as people know, but it has its uses. So yeah, good luck to the Restart project, and thanks for um, shining a light on the fact that the digital literacy needs to enable children to explore the digital world on their own. It's great to have safeguarding and security, but you know yourself, Swain, when you were a child, I'm sure exploring, well, as I did, building sites and forests and climbing trees taught me far more about the world than my parents looking over my shoulder.
Absolutely.
So the next one then is a lovely story from my friend, well, someone I consider a friend, Rachel Caldicott, called "Delinquent Telephone Activity," and this is a really long story. So I just clipped some bits from it to talk about on here, but it's well worth looking on. Rachel has a blog site, or she's a Medium blogger, so it's worth going on there to have a look at that, and we'll tweet the link maybe later. So Rachel has spent the last few years, she says, working out if it's possible to rebel. Sorry, never can't pronounce that properly. Rebel against big tech, and she says she's tried a few different things. She's studied public attitudes to technology, proposed new regulatory systems, spoken to many of the big tech companies, and taken part in social media strikes. She even ran an ad campaign once, but she said it wasn't very effective. And she says that it turns out it's really difficult to get people to rebel against something if they can't see it, don't feel empowered to make choices about it, and don't really understand it. But she goes on to say we can reclaim the technologies that are polarizing us for the benefit of billionaires and work instead to create dense, warm ecosystems. So she talks about at the start of the pandemic, as we know, almost overnight, millions of people were using the internet to do all sorts of things they'd never considered doing virtually, most of them doing it using tools designed for something else. Everything from comedy shows to counselling sessions to after work drinks were taking place on Zoom and Teams and Google Meet, and the sight of dozens of faces stacking up on screens in little black rimmed boxes became normal for everything from worship to workouts. Finding new ways to hang out with your friends when you're meant to be doing something else is an age old form of innovation. And then she goes on to say that it's easy to think that important things look and behave like important things, But after a year, when so many of us have been wearing sweatpants under the desk, maybe it's time to realize those distinctions are artificial. Perhaps the innovations that are sold with good PowerPoints and slick pitches are only really more important than sea shanties on TikTok because they are dressed up to look more important. I think that's a really good reflection on what what we're spending time on, and the fact that, as we know, so many people have come online and have helped others to come online because they had to, but they've embraced it and they've made it their own. The link with telephone activities refers to how the phone first evolved, and how men decided that this was a very technical thing and it should be used for technical reasons. But women discovered that they could have chats with each other. And coming up on screen now is a picture of a woman in a kitchen
Oh wow.
on the phone while her children are doing some baking, I think. Um, and just showing that the informality and the socializing element of phones obviously appeal to women who might have had less to do outside the home in those days.
Why you
Um,
need a kitchen extension phone, it says.
yes, indeed. And I think Rachel talks in this article as well about texting, and how texting was set up originally by Nokia engineers to communicate with each other when they were repairing power lines, and then some teenagers discovered they could send messages to each other, and then it just blew up really. I've got a friend who in the early days of mobile phones got a package from her provider that was unlimited texts, and the provider has since tried several times to sell her a different package, and she says no, text is where it's at.
Yeah.
It just took off like wildfire, and she loves it and wouldn't be without unlimited text forever.
Well, in the
Um,
days before Slack or WhatsApp, text is where it's at. I mean,
yeah,
WhatsApp's just a
yeah,
generalized texting service, really,
yeah,
at its
yeah,
core.
yeah. In a group, in a groups
Hmm.
you can make, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know if you know Ken Banks, Sweyn, but he did a great project on using SMS years ago, and he still talks about it. And he's actually writing a book now called Purpose. We might get him on the show some stage
Hmm.
if he's willing to come on. But yeah, talking about using technology, and kind of Rachel's overwhelming theme in that blog post is about love and using
Yeah.
warmth and friendliness, as I think we do on this show, to kind of encourage people to be connected to each other. And I
Well,
think
that was
John was very much like that.
exactly. Let
Mm,
people natter to one another. That's John's sort of
absolutely. Yeah.
insight, I think, and one of the best insights he has. It's very, very similar in direction to what Rachel's saying here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice. Okay, and so our next story is about one of our favorite subjects, libraries, and it's an article by Linda Poon in Bloomberg.com and the title is "The Future of Libraries is in the Community." And I mean, it's not a surprise, but it's just good. We like to remind people again and again about how great libraries are and how useful they are. And new research in this article, co-authored by Lisa Guernsey, the Director of Teaching, Learning and Tech at New America, and how people use libraries during the pandemic, points to the gaps that still need to be filled for those institutions to serve those who need digital access the most. This is in the US. Black, Hispanic and Asian users surveyed all expressed more trouble accessing online resources, according to a report from the nonprofit New America. These same groups are more likely than white users to depend on libraries as the main source of internet. And the divide is significant, goes on to say later in the article, because librarians also play an important role in helping residents navigate the web to connect to social services, from signing up for healthcare coverage to applying for unemployment, to more pertinent than now than ever, scheduling vaccine appointments. And there's a quote from Paulo Balboa, program manager at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, that communities that might not have the skills or the know-how to navigate the internet are in danger of being left behind when it comes to access to services. And he was part of a group of experts who provided research for the survey. And this means, towards the end of the article, it says this means going forward, new policies to expand digital access need to focus on better reaching these groups, particularly as libraries think of themselves more as community-wide resources than physical destinations. And Sweyn has the article on screen now. Um, so, yeah, it's good to hear people work in libraries kind of upping the game again. I think libraries have always had a fairly high bar of inclusion, but it's good to hear them still talking about what more they can do. And it's disturbing to hear that Black, Asian, and ethnic minority users might be doing less well than white people. And so I'm sure that's something that we in the UK would want to be looking into as well. I think we learned so much from other countries, what they're doing.
It's another article that just underscores that in these times, for years now, libraries have been much more than collections of books that you can borrow. And to me, there is a slight risk in some places of looking upon a cupboard full of books that the public can theoretically borrow if they can find it. Or the one I really sort of slightly object to being called a library at all is where somebody adopts a red telephone box and stuffs it full of books and leaves it there for people to borrow the books. Really, that's not what we mean when we speak about public libraries. We mean somewhere that's open, that's warm, that's at least got a drink of water, that has somebody there to speak to and help you navigate through the various different information sources or requirements that you might have. It's not about a collection of objects which you borrow. It's about a place you can go to get access to information, whatever that information is, and where you can get help to do that. So a library is not a library as far as I'm concerned if it's closed 3 days a week, and it's not a library if it's staffed only by people with who are either volunteering with little or no training in what libraries are these days, or indeed if they're completely unstaffed. It's just not. That's not what a public library is, and we should call those other things something different, like book lending places.
Yeah, I agree. And there's been plenty of debate on Twitter about that, and people getting upset that they're what they like to call a library. Other people say that's not a library. And
I think I know someone on Twitter saying that the thing that person objected to, of course I can never remember who it was this notion of calling a library a community library at the point where all the staff are withdrawn and they're replaced by volunteers. That's not what we mean by a community library.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's worth having a debate about language, and I'm hoping to talk to Ayub Khan, who's I think he's the recently departed president of SILIP, about this and digital inclusion going forward. Certainly in the because he's head of libraries in Warwickshire.
SILIP is the professional body for librarians, is that right?
It is, yes, and information professionals. And they, I mean, it's an ongoing debate. Yeah. It's an ongoing debate, and I think it's useful to have volunteers in libraries. But people who have from training, people who have skills, people who aren't just doing it because it's a nice thing to do, because it's because they have some commitment to kind of opening up the world of information to people, and an understanding that the library is not about the physical, not just about the physical content, but about the ability to find things.
I didn't mean to suggest anything other than that volunteers are brilliant, but in such a complicated space as a public library, there's definitely a requirement for somebody there to direct the volunteers, to train them, and to provide some kind of leadership and networking with other similar institutions, which volunteers with the best will in the world are unlikely to be able, most of them, to do.
Yeah. Yep. So the debate will go on, and we will keep mentioning libraries in our show. And the next story is one from Scotland. This was from the Daily Record. I hope that's okay to mention a newspaper. And the headline is: Nicola Sturgeon vows to give every Scots child laptop as she strikes first in votes battle. Okay, so maybe there'll be different views about this, but this is a promise from an incoming SNP government, if it comes in, that every school pupil in Scotland will be given a free laptop or tablet. And the 350 million policy will see all children from P1 to S6, which I presume are the class name types, receive an internet connected device in a
primary one to, that's year 1 to year whatever the last year is, 14, 15, 16.
Okay. So this is a bid to end the digital divide in Scotland. And the story says about a third of pupils are feared to have missed out on virtual lessons over the lockdown because they didn't have access to a computer or broadband connection. So about 260 million will be spent buying laptops and tablets for Scotland's 792,000 pupils over the course of the next parliament. And a further 90 million will go on servicing and support costs, plus teacher training and internet infrastructure. Um, so it's good to see, one of the nations, a story about one of the nations, what they're planning to do.
As you probably know, Pauline, we've just entered the short election campaign period for election to the Scottish Parliament. So we don't have any MSPs at the moment; they're all candidates. And this is a story about one party having election policies in this area, and if there are any other parties that are just standing in Scotland that we notice or that people want to point us out their policies in this area, would be equally happy to feature those.
We'll be delighted. Anything that helps to bridge the digital divide is a good thing, and anything we can do to help and support and to kind of share information, we're very happy to do so.
London has elections as well, of course.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a series of by-elections, isn't there, around the country?
England has local authority elections in most places, if not everywhere. London also has its mayoral election.
As does the West Midlands and probably Greater Manchester.
Yeah.
So pleased to hear about anything that's going on there. Anyone who's listening. So we go on to the next story, which is about it's a commercial venture, I think, but it's about from the Netherlands, and the title is ASML enters partnership to support digital inclusion of older people. And we do like to hear about digital inclusion of older people because they are one of the groups that are have been particularly left out of digital inclusion. And this is a story about a facility called Welcome Online, launched in 2019, which aims to encourage older people in the Netherlands to become acquainted with and take advantage of the opportunities of the internet. And the objective is to enable them to maintain contact with friends and family while also helping them feel more comfortable and even enjoy participating in our increasingly digital society. And during the first lockdown, due to the coronavirus pandemic in March 2020, the Welcome Online Help Desk was established alongside the educational program so that older people could be assisted with any digital related issues they experience. And the help desk is staffed by volunteers from the National Foundation for the Elderly and employees of ASML and Vodafone Ziggo. That sounds like a good combination of people, from an organization that would understand the needs of older people and two organizations that understand technology. It sounds like a really good model Samsung is also mentioned in this story, a new collaboration partner to support the digital inclusion of older people. So and they give some facts and figures on digital inclusion of the elderly in the Netherlands, and they are that 12.7% of the elderly find it very difficult to use digital devices and the internet. 47% were hesitant when first using digital devices. 57% feel more or less obligated to use digital devices due to digitalization. 58.3% are very entertained by digital devices during their free time. 64.4% feel the digital devices make them more independent, and 86% find the digital devices make taking care of practical matters faster. I think that's a really useful set of statistics, Sweyn.
I think so, yes. I imagine that we'd find a similar result in any of the 4 UK nations. I don't know.
Yeah. I like the entertain bit, and I like as with my own mum, she doesn't tend to watch TV or look at the internet during the day or her tablet or whatever, but she loves to have it in the evening time.
Yeah.
So it is seen as an adjunct to daily life, not a replacement for it.
And that's 2/3 of people saying that they feel that digital devices make them feel more independent. So that's also quite important for sort of quality and confidence in life generally as we all get older.
Yeah, that's good to know that people are thinking about that and that we're learning from each other. And we're back to libraries, and this was a story about the UK and the US, about libraries in the UK and the US. And the headline is, "It took COVID closures to reveal just how much libraries do beyond lending books." And this was a story about how the different things that you can get from libraries. And it says about how libraries in the UK and the US were quick to spring into action after the initial shockwave of lockdown, promoting existing online content, providing new remote services, and finding safe ways to keep the public connected with both their reading and the wider library community. And luckily, as it says, most libraries were already much better equipped to do this than many of their customers realised, with online services available but often underused until this year. And there's a quote from Brian Bannon, who's the Marilyn James Tisch director at the New York Public Library, saying the good news is that many of our online services were already live. For example, our reading app has been running for over a decade. So we were able to improve our visibility and advertise the 300,000 materials we had available. And Bruce Leake, who's the chief executive of Suffolk Libraries in the UK, agreed that they already had a strong digital presence and apps and programs available, saw a great uptick in use, with our Press Reader app use increasing by over 287% during lockdown.
Wow.
So that's quite a number, isn't it? Have you used e-lending from libraries, Sweyn?
I haven't. No,
Mm,
I like a book in my hand. I don't like ebooks at all, personally.
mm,
I dare say if I found books difficult to handle, I might change my views a bit. But in general, I kind of stick to traditional books. I'm a bit of a traditionalist that way.
yeah. Well, I have a bit of both, obviously, because certainly until recently was traveling several times a year to Ireland. Now, obviously, I'm in Ireland. I'm not traveling so much, but it was very handy to be able to download books onto my tablet. But I do both. You know, I like a book in my hand, to turning the page and just feeling that connection with another world. Um,
For traveling, you can't beat ebooks, that's for sure.
mm,
If you are splitting your time between a few places, or if you're traveling a lot, then it must be really good. But I tend to be fairly rooted to the spot,
yeah,
not just during COVID times. So
yeah, yeah.
it's not.
The other thing I discovered, well, not discovered, but I taught myself to do probably in the last 18 months, was to download TV programs and films onto my tablet, which I hadn't done before. I know people have done it for yonks, but I hadn't. And that was quite nice. It was only storage, then the amount of room I had on my tablet to keep materials, that was a limit on me. But I have enjoyed looking at stuff offline when it's
Yes,
available.
that's a great facility.
Yeah. So, in the story again, Kate Larson, director of Tacoma Public Library in the US, said that many libraries saw their hard work and undervalued virtual content pay off. And she says, for us, we felt as if we were finally being seen and valued, commenting on the response from the surrounding Tacoma community. And then obviously, many libraries also worked to develop additional content for customers stuck at home, despite staff shortages caused by furloughs or lack of childcare. And another quote from Bruce Leake from Suffolk Libraries says, we've launched a number of online services, including live book readings, education programs, painting classes, and games, as Sue Lawson and her colleague Steph told us recently on the program. You know, they were doing a whole festival of reading. Um, Bruce Leake says, over lockdown, we also started live streaming services through Facebook Live, everything from early years activities to networking groups for older people. And between March and the end of May, they live streamed nearly 2,500 live events. I mean, that's a
Wow, that's amazing.
serious number.
Yeah, I
That's
mean
March, April,
that
May.
sounds like
That's 3 months.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like somebody really has got to grips with how to do stuff, maybe convert and adapt stuff that they've been
Mm,
doing in person,
mm,
to properly take advantage of all the online routes. And we need to try to keep a hold of some of this as the lockdown stops, because there'll be a certain proportion of those people who are engaging in stuff online, who will find it very difficult to suddenly start traveling to a library or somewhere else to
mm.
take part. So we need to make sure that we don't lose all this with
Yes.
the
Yeah.
undoubted joy of being able to see our friends and family again in England from today, in groups of 6, I believe,
Hmm.
and in Wales already, and soon, no doubt, in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Yeah, we need to not lose the convenience, the environmental friendliness, and the accessibility opportunities of keeping things happening online as well as in person as we go back.
Yeah.
Build back
Definitely.
better, or apologies if
Whatever.
that's an actual political slogan at the moment. I didn't mean
Yeah.
to use it in that way.
Um. So another interesting bit piece from this story was about quantifying in a monetary way, what libraries do. And Suffolk Libraries had an assessment from an accountancy firm, which recently estimated the services they run to help mental health and well-being generate 2 million, which is $2.5 million, £2 million of what is known as social value. That is a saving to society made by intervening at an earlier stage and providing a lifeline to those who might otherwise need more medical support or intervention. So it is good to be able to, quantify this.
There is.
And if more libraries could do this, I think it would help
I think
people
so.
making decisions to see, that the money is very well spent
I think libraries
in
are
libraries.
in a difficult position as resources can become more and more stretched to do more and more things. It must be very hard to make the time to make these calculations and keep these statistics, but it would be good to see a systematic way of doing that, so that, as you say, we could actually get some recognition for what libraries are doing. I think this article captures very well the fact that there have been these online facilities for years now, and there was a big push. I think it's probably nearly 20 years ago to get all libraries in the UK online and offering access to the internet, access to printers, and so on. And it's really been a very, very slow burn, I think, and until the lockdown, when, as the Suffolk librarian there says, things have really come to the fore.
Yeah,
been
I mean,
visible and
he goes on to say,
thought out. People are seeking out ways to do things online.
yeah, yeah. But he goes on to say they began a lifeline telephone service where library staff were making calls to vulnerable or potentially isolated users. And again, numbers, they made 6,700 calls between March and the end of May to vulnerable people, helping people to access help and support, but also just access to a friendly voice on the phone. I mean, that
Absolutely.
must have been lovely.
Yeah,
That must have been lovely for
that's
people.
a model that is used in many places. Scotland has a national scheme for that, run by Help the Aged, where people can opt in to receive. I don't think it's a daily phone call; maybe weekly phone call, just as a means to have a chat with somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, that model of using the good old fashioned telephone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, some exchanges are digital, so that counts as digital.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking personally, I'm here with my mum at the moment and in Galway, and I hear her on the phone to her friends and her cousins and stuff, and she comes alive on the phone talking to somebody she knows who, talking about things she enjoys talking about, family and friends and stuff, and you can see the benefit straight away to people. So yeah, we'd encourage that certainly.
My partner's mother is doing an awful lot of online shopping at the moment, and the way she does it is she phones my partner and says, "I want you to get this for me from Marks and Spencer's," so we can order it for her and it gets delivered, and she's done her online shopping.
If it works, as Rachel Caldicott was saying in that earlier thing, we can game the technology for ourselves.
Absolutely, and that's something that would have been really difficult to do if internet shopping wasn't like it is. It'd be much harder to get things done for her. She would maybe have a go herself, but her eyesight is now very, very poor, so it's hard for her to do stuff that's detailed. And she's never been a technology person, particularly. She's in her 90s, but she's absolutely got hold of this facility, and it's absolutely great. It really has maintained her kind of outward-looking spirit of independence in a way that I think might have been a bit threatened otherwise.
And I think that's probably missing even now from the conversation, but digitally inclusion conversation, that someone can be digitally included because they're using somebody else, they're using what they feel comfortable with, which is the phone or message of some sort, to get somebody else to get the thing that they want. They don't have to do it themselves. This is the misconception about it. They talk about independence as well. When they talk about, when other people talk about disabled people and independence, they think that we want to do everything ourselves, and some disabled people do say that as well. But independence is not about doing everything yourself. It's making sure that you get what you want from however way. Yes, exactly. However way that works for you. So yeah.
No, I mean, my partner's mother will show up on all the statistics as being completely digitally excluded because
Yeah.
she has no connection other than her literal landline
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
And yet she's doing all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
At one, and I think again that it's similar. It's kind of slightly similar in the way that we look at libraries, where the importance is the librarian, the person who can do the thing or help me as an unconfident person to do something in the library that I would have struggled to do at home. It's really just a kind of personal or a family example of the same sort of mediated, curated access to digital stuff that some people are going to continue to need indefinitely.
Mm-hmm. Back to this story, New York Public Library distributed 300,000 internet-enabled devices to their existing families at home who needed to complete the school year, and they started a book away program where they gave out free books, particularly for kids who weren't able to check out materials online. And then the last part of the story, it says libraries in London also set up virtual IT training sessions to help people at home who would otherwise be completely isolated to Zoom, to keep in contact, use the internet to order groceries and other useful tasks. And that was from Caroline Ray, the chair of London Libraries. And we have heard from other people how libraries, how IT sessions were being set up in libraries. We've covered stories before about this. So we know libraries are doing great stuff, and it's good to again flag it up. We make no apology for it. We know it's working, and the more people we can encourage to use the services, then the better. So our next story is from Uruguay, and this was a story about digital inclusion from someone called Elizabeth Rochford, the Partnership and Innovation Manager in O2's sustainability team. And she tweeted, and Sweyn has it on screen now, that 10 years ago, Uruguay introduced a one laptop per child policy, free internet in public squares, including in rural areas, and founded a state agency for digital education. And this is a story in Der Spiegel, which I couldn't access because it's behind a paywall of some sort. But, that sounds great that a country, trying to get it up.
Oh,
I'm not
yes, you
sure
said
you
paywall,
can.
didn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. It's some kind of reading with ads.
Oh, really? Let's try that.
If you just go back to the tweet. But it's great to hear. You did get into it. Okay. So yeah, every child. If I can just read the headline, yeah. The sub under the headline, every child gets a laptop from the state along with online teaching material and animated school books. So Uruguay showing how it's done when it comes to digital education. I mean, this was
Amazing.
it really caught my eye. I thought it was a really nice thing to hear.
Oh, there's a nice picture as well of
Yeah,
a
child
Uruguayan child with
using it.
device.
Yeah.
Very
Out in the
serious.
sunshine as well, which is
Obviously
even
focusing on
better.
the content, not the device. Great
Yeah,
picture.
yeah.
Maybe that's the end of what we can access actually, because we've
Yeah.
got cute kittens now, so we'll leave that one.
Always popular online. But it's like we say, it's good to learn from other countries. One laptop per child sounds like a great policy. Free internet in public squares. Birmingham had free internet. At least for a while, maybe still has. I'm not sure. I haven't been out to check it recently. So I know some cities have recognized that having free internet makes a big difference. So yeah. Okay, and then we have a nice story. I thought this was about, again, we talk about people getting online and doing their own thing. This was about terrariums, a terrarium workshop with Jane from Kew Gardens, which was a tweet from Fulham Good Neighbours. And they tweeted, check out those smiles and lovely creations from our friends and volunteers at the terrarium workshop with Jane from Kew Gardens. And this was part of their digital inclusion project, helping them to have plenty of great conversations this year. And again, I think that was really nice. If you can focus in on the graphic, the picture, Sweyn, it was really nice to see everybody on screen. Now we have a picture, 9 Zoom, screens with people showing their terrariums, which are glass balls with a where you can we have an opening, and people can put soil in or compost and plant from plants, and they've all got a plant of some sort. Some more advanced than others. There's a spider plant in the bottom left, and
I'm a
they
bit more
obviously grow
worried than
more
others as well,
quickly.
but they all look happy.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And they all manage to,
They've all
holding it up
grown
on
something,
screen.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
All ages there, from teenage, I
absolutely.
would say, through to older age, much
Yeah,
older age.
and lots of smiles. So really successful. Somebody has one there in the middle on the left. It looks like a a cactus of some sort. I think
Mm.
cacti are good um for growing and these kind of things. Have you ever done growing in a terrarium, Swain?
I've got what's the opposite of green fingers? What do you call yourself if you kill everything that you even look at? That's me.
Surely not. Nothing grows for you?
Nothing, nothing.
Really? Wow.
I mean, admittedly, I do find it hard to remember to do whatever you're supposed to do to them every so often. But
Water?
water
Give
would
them
go,
light?
whatever. Yeah, open the windows.
Yes, I've made sure that plants I have in my house are low maintenance, very low maintenance. So yeah,
Yes,
yeah. So I thought that was a nice to show what some people have been
that's a
doing
great one.
online recently. And then we go back to a story about digital inclusion and further education. And this was from the Times Education Supplement, why FE's priorities must be digital inclusion by someone called David Jones. And the Independent Commission on the College of the Future has proposed a national network of digital community hubs in colleges to accelerate the rollout of digital access, and particular to tackle digital poverty. And he says this needs to be part of a wider strategy for all ages, and collaboration is key. And to be effective, he says work needs to be done through a collective regional approach in conjunction with regional skills partnerships, public service boards, trade unions, and with schools, universities, and those already working in the digital inclusion space as part of a more integrated, wider tertiary network, which is the foundation of the proposals. He obviously acknowledges that digital inclusion is vital in its own right, but it also unlocks further learning as more and more is delivered online post COVID. Higher level digital skills are needed for many industries, from engineering to the wide range of green jobs, so called green jobs. Many of these sectors that need these skills are key to the growth of the economy, and businesses of all sizes need the confidence their local college will deliver the digital talent they need to innovate and prosper. So, a point well made. I think probably most colleges I've had exposure to anyway are thinking are making, they are, adding to digital inclusion. But
Yeah, I mean, I think in
it's
my
good
part
to
of the
hear
world,
more.
colleges are very tightly um, allied with the University of the Highlands and Islands, which I always go on
Mm,
about. So that's the kind of higher education degree awarding body, but almost all of their physical premises are in the further education college around the Highlands and Islands, whether it's including Perthshire. Um, so you've got the advantages of the higher. There's a lot more of this stuff happens as a fundamental part of higher education than of further education. So in our area, we have the colleges have the very great advantage that they are directly plugged into the facilities of the university.
mm,
So
mm,
there's much less of a kind of divide between universities and colleges here
mm.
than in many places. So, and you really do see that when it comes down to access to digital technology or uh, and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
it'd be good to think that what this article is saying would lead other places to take the same kind of or an equivalent approach.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's good to. I mean, the regions kind of have got a bit of a bad press in years gone by, but I think they are coming into their own again, and it's good to hear that there are skills partnerships and public service boards, and that the article recommends working with trade unions and schools and universities. We all have elements that we can forget if we're not kind of all sitting around the table, metaphorically or literally, to contribute to this. And also, obviously, I would like to see charities and voluntary organisations
Yes, of
included as
course.
well. I think people sometimes forget that or don't realise that people who work in voluntary organisations and charities do get paid for the work they do, and they need the skills to be able to do those things better. Okay, so the next story was one I picked up about a social enterprise that exists to prevent homelessness, and it's going digital or going bust. And this was some work commissioned by Carnegie UK Trust to reflect, explore, and share the experience of this organization called Your Own Place of moving online with their delivery. And it's quite a long piece, but it's a kind of a long they call it an infogram, and they kind of yeah, you've got the contents up there, and then on the next two sections is going digital, questions we wished we'd had more time to ask ourselves, and their digital project top tips. And so on screen, Sweyn has now the questions they wish they'd had more time to ask themselves, which are one, what technology, experience, expertise, skills, and experience do we need to do this and have already? Two, how can we continue to make interventions engaging online? Three, what is core to us and our delivery we don't want to lose? Four, how will we know if it works? Five, what's it going to cost and who will pay? And six, how can we keep people safe? I think there are good questions for anybody, planning to take a service online to think about. They would be the key questions, I think, Sweyn,
I think so.
if I was
Yeah,
moving online, something online.
it's great just to have a almost a checklist for people to use when because all of those factors will potentially cause problems if you don't think about them at the start.
So another great post about somebody doing something practical, taking stuff online, and I think they've said in the article they don't need to take everything online. It's just what they learned and what they are sharing with others so they can improve. Then actually, if you scroll down, oh yeah, they have the digital top tips. Okay, so under resilience. They learned the resilience of your organization, team, and those you support cannot be separated. So the tip was to create a culture where you can be honest about the shortcomings of the organization, the support people need, the skills you need to bring in and design and cost it as one. That was the first tip. And then the next one was on collaboration and partnership. They learned this much digital development as well as demands on new skill sets puts huge pressure on the team at a time of external pressure we may not always be aware of. So the tip was to involve the team in as much of the planning and strategy as possible, bring in outside expertise if needed, and think about what skills you need to recruit for in the future, including your governance. I think that's a
It's a
really
really good one.
important thing, yeah, especially the governance one. I think people often forget that the strategic overview that a governing body brings is important, and that they need to have the skills and knowledge as well. Not just recruiting people because they're your mates down the golf club or someone from another place that might not have. It's good to think to set the bar a bit higher again for people who are going to govern an organization. And the last tip then was on digital exclusion and safety. They say we learned the world is digital by default. We have a moral responsibility to keep people safe in all we do, including if we are asking them to go online more. So the tip was to ascertain the risks and resiliences by asking questions as part of all delivery and not just explicitly digital delivery. Take safe risks now in trying ideas out and keep learning logs to understand what works. Really,
really
very,
good stuff.
very useful. Yeah. So a great thing. We'll try and include that in the notes to today's program, so people can pick them up as they.
I've got distracted. I'm zooming. I'm scrolling through this info. It's well worth a look.
Yeah. So we have a few more stories. Is there any one of those you want to pick out, Sweyn, or are you happy for?
I will think we should keep plowing on through them.
Okay, cool.
It's good. Yeah.
So the next one was one I picked up about the White House accessibility policy. Obviously, everyone knows the White House is the home of the American president, and this is an opportunity to show the world a commitment to digital exclusion inclusion. And this is a story from the American Foundation for the Blind, where they are saying that the White House .gov accessibility statement does the three things they recommend their clients put in an accessibility statement, which was to clearly state your accessibility policy, provide specific and measurable goals, and welcome feedback from users through a clear channel or method. However, they say we strongly recommend that a company explain the measures they're taking to actually fulfill this policy. Are you testing regularly with the actual users of assistive technology, or are you relying on an automated accessibility scanner? And do you have a third party helping with this process? I think that's really helpful, because so often in many things we have policies, but we don't have the practice and the review and we don't measuring the progress gets kind of put to one side maybe. So I think that's a good challenge to, even someone at the head of government in a very important country, that even they can have a challenge to make sure that things are going well.
In the UK, there's new legislative requirements for accessibility on websites that have come in over the last few months, and the government digital service are kind of doing spot checks almost on websites in the public sector, and contacting whoever the website is run by to remind them if they find any problems with accessibility, that this is something that they have to address. So this looks like a really good detailed. This story looks like a really good detailed analysis of a specific accessibility commitment policy thing. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, good. Okay, and on to our next story, which was from Independent Age, which I think is a charity helping older people. And the headline was, "What Can the Digital World Offer Me?" by Christy Collingburn. And this kind of is more, I think it's more or less directing people towards the Independent Age website, but kind of packaging it in such a way to encourage people to investigate, because I think a headline like that would encourage me to want to see more. And they have a digital mini series, and one of the first things they profile is staying safe online. So if you scroll down, you can see the link to the staying at the very bottom, I think. Plenty of information on the Independent Age website about staying safe online, and if you click on that link, then you go to the article about staying safe online, which
more cookies.
More cookies, yeah. Sorry, always worth checking out, because we do want people to be safe online, not to reveal their passwords to anybody, to use safe password manager, to make sure their browsers are up to date. Other things they advise there: when you're shopping, making payments, or banking online, make sure the website is genuine, secure. So looking for the padlock that tells you that it's a secure website. Being careful about your personal information. On social media, keeping your privacy settings up to date. Don't accept friend or follow requests from people you don't know. And don't click on links in emails or open attachments if you don't know the sender, or if anything about the email looks strange. And it's worth just repeating these things from time to time, isn't it?
It certainly is.
We can all do with a reminder. And that's a really good long article about lots of interesting things about staying safe online. Good advice there from Independent Age. And our next story is about Zoom. And I was interested to see this because when I clicked on the link in this, it turns out my business account already has transcription, which I didn't know. But Zoom is offering access to live transcription feature upon request now. And they're saying it's an enhancement to its service in order to become more accessible to users with disabilities. They're saying it will add automatic closed captioning to its free accounts, which is would be a real boon to some people, I think. And the functionality will be called live transcription, as expected to be available to all users in the autumn, fall, as they say in the US, according to Jen Hill, who's the product marketing manager at Zoom. But in the interim, Zoom will offer automatic closed captioning to meeting hosts upon request. And if you click on the link, as I did, Sweyn, at the bottom, you come to this kind of easy to fill in Google form. And it turns out if they have your email, they can tell whether you already got live transcription. For somebody who had the free service, this might be very handy. I know I find subtitles really good on TV, for example. So I think this would be even better for people on Zoom who are getting used to it.
I'm not going to click on the form because
no, that's fine.
It's never a good idea to click on forms live.
I think people don't realize how much we actually lip read as a general matter of rule. So having the transcription, I think, will help people who rely on that. We've got two more stories, I think, if we have time to.
We've got one more minute.
One more minute. Okay, let's go to the next one in the line then, which is from the CBI, who maybe a bit late to the party with a headline like "It's time to take action on digital exclusion," because a lot of us are doing it. But this is Peter Padde for the CBI, saying, I mean, he did start a laptops for the homeless initiative in 2016, from starting from scratch with no contacts and down to lots of calls and determination. But he does say that if it wasn't for the engagement of large organisations at the beginning, such as BP, Aviva, and Legal in General, he wouldn't be where they are now. And they needed them to believe in the scheme to start engaging others too. And since then, lots of others have joined them, including the CBI themselves. But he says one of the main stumbling blocks for businesses to donate their old technology to the community has been the wiping of precious data from computers, laptops, and phones. But anything they collect now is securely wiped, and they provide each company with a data removal certificate, and they then install open source software on all the laptops and computers that they're, giving to other people. Obviously, they recognise social distancing and other measures pose challenges, and they have lots of collections during the pandemic, and some companies such as Allianz have allowed them to use their unused rooms to carry out the wiping of data. And just at the end of the story, Peter says, in the longer term, one of the first steps a business can take is changing their procurement policy by donating IT locally to those in need. They estimate that a 3 to 7% shift in procurement policies towards local social impact can reduce digital exclusion by a third. And this is also one of the three main goals in their manifesto, which also includes eradicating digital poverty in the UK by the year 2030. So I think that's a really nice story to end on.
It's a good story, yes.
Yeah.
And I think the point about wiping data from devices is now pretty much a solved problem.
Yeah.
Anyone who is still nervous about that needs to just find out how that works and how to do it. Whether it's that you use a software to scrub the data off the device, or whether you take the hard disk drive away and replace it with a blank new one. Both approaches have their place.
Yeah, we had guests on the show who've talked about that, and the Restart Project, as we said earlier, list all those schemes where they take your device and they will guarantee to wipe your data. So it is good to do and safe to do. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the show for today. So thanks everybody for who's listening in, and we hope you've enjoyed at least some of what we've talked about today. Next week we're back to having a guest, which will be great. But for
I think we've coped. Today, it's not been. Yep. We've coped. It's fine.
We've done really well.
Great to have guests, though.
Absolutely, we love having guests. Okay, so wish everybody have a great week. Have a great week, everybody. Bye. Bye.